Can we please just acknowledge that Bobby Clark performance? It was absolutely phenomenal today up against QPR. And I think it's something that we need to keep an eye on across the course of the next few days as we sort of head towards the game up against Sheffield United, as well as look towards future games and Derby County's future midfield balance. It's obviously been a big discussion over the course of this season and even last year as well, and even going back even further than that about Derby County's ability to be able to find a midfield balance. Now, obviously, you can have your say down in the comments. And if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. But let's get into it. If you have not done so already, check out the links down in the description. We're trying to hit 50 subscribers on the gaming channel so that I can live stream FC, Football Manager and all things like that. So make sure you go and subscribe over there and I'll catch you in one of the live streams soon. Now, obviously, this was Bobby Clark's first game really where I felt that he's playing in his natural position, where he's played as that sort of number 8. He's had that opportunity to go box to box, to create chances and to get on the ball. Now, I think if we want to talk about Bobby Clark and we want to talk about those performances, you just look at his numbers in all those games where he's been in that further forward role, and ultimately the only one where he really stood out was Burnley in the Cup, where he picked up a really, really nice goal. But ultimately today is by far his best performance in a Derby County shirt. Now, if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe. We're going to go into all the stats right now. Now, obviously, Derby County have picked up 2 wins in the last 2 games, and I think especially for the QPR game, Bobby Clark was a huge reason for that victory. Now, let's take a look at his performance and let's look at the numbers in a little bit more detail. So 90 minutes played for the 20-year-old midfielder, 24 out of 31 passes completed at a 77% completion rate. He created 2 chances with an expected assist of 0.02. He contributed defensively on 5 different occasions, as well as creating a lot of attacking opportunities. Now, he made 45 touches of the ball, none of which were in the opposition box, but he did have 1 out of 2 successful dribbles and 4 passes into the final third. Now, he wasn't able to get on the end of a cross or any long balls, but he was only dispossessed once in the terms of this game. Now, he made 4 tackles, 1 interception, 10 recoveries, and was only dribbled past once. He completed 60% of his duels, was fouled once, and committed just 1 foul. Now, I think when we look at a player like Bobby Clark, we've got to acknowledge what sort of player he is and what he can actually do for me, because I think a lot of people looked at him and sort of expected him to be something different to what he was. Now, I mentioned a few days ago my thoughts on Bobby Clark, and in my personal opinion, he reminds me very much of Mason Mount from that 2018-19 season, and I thought he was excellent, Mason Mount, that year, and I think Bobby Clark gives me those same vibes for me. He's very good at getting on the ball. He can skip past a man or skip past 2 men and create really good opportunities, but ultimately the problem that comes from having a player like that in the squad is that it obviously leaves you a little bit lacking on the defensive standpoint. Now, ultimately, I've got to be honest, I don't think at any point Bobby Clark was out-muscled. I don't think at any point he was out-fought to a ball or anything like that. I don't think in any of those situations, I don't think anybody can really call him lightweight or anything like that, which I know was a lot of people's worry sort of heading into this game and sort of heading into potentially having Bobby Clark in that central midfield position. But ultimately, that's sort of the situation we find ourselves in, where Bobby Clark has been given that opportunity, and I think he was absolutely unbelievable today. I thought it was by far his best performance in a Derby County shirt, like 100%. And I think that's the main thing that we've got to note. Now, if we do look a little bit deeper into those passing stats, he made 14 of 20 passes in the opposition half. Now, Derby County didn't have a lot of possession. I believe it was only about 38% possession. But ultimately, that is absolutely brilliant. Over the course of the game, as I mentioned earlier, he won 2 tackles, but he attempted 4. And I don't think you can complain about that. For a player of Bobby Clark's size and stature, I thought it was an unbelievable performance in a position that you don't necessarily expect him to play in. Now, it is one of those for me where you do need to sort of discuss that midfield balance, because I felt as if Derby County's midfield balance was perfect today. I felt it was excellent for Bobby Clark to actually get that opportunity to play in a deeper role. And he actually, in my opinion, I thought he shone, and I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch. And some people might not agree with me. I know he was given man of the match on the day, but I know some people won't agree with me because that's just the way of football. Everybody has their own opinions. But for me, I don't think you can sort of go towards Sheffield United and sort of make a change on that. Now, if we do look at Bobby Clark over the course of his last few games for Derby, we'll ignore Norwich, he only played a minute, right? But if we look at his sort of average position against Oxford, he came off the bench in that one and was sort of off the left. And I thought he was decent in that game. Well, I say he was off the left. He was very central. And in that game, 5 of 12 passes in the opposition half, but ultimately we were a bit shit, right? And then you look at, you go back to the game versus Burnley, which was the only other game where I felt he actually played centrally. And you look at his numbers in that game. He scored a goal, as some of you may remember. I think it was his only shot of the game. Completed 92% of his passes, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, and won pretty much 50% of his duels yet again. And I think that's the important thing for me, is that he's not one of those players that's sort of missing out on opportunities. He's not one of those players that... He wasn't outworked today. And I think that's always the worry when you put a player like Bobby Clark into the team, because they have that technical ability and they can sort of... But there was something they used to call it. You'll probably let me know in the comments, but cheating. They cheat on the defensive side of things. And don't get me wrong, I have no issues with players cheating on the defensive side of things if you know that when we get the ball, you're gone and you take that opportunity. But I don't think Bobby Clark at any point today cheated defensively. I don't think he shirked out of a tackle. I don't think he let the opposition sort of get a read of him, really. And I just felt as if it was a really good opportunity for him to sort of truly show himself to John Eustace and show, do you know what, John? This is my position. This is where I should be, week in, week out, and I can cause some real problems. And I genuinely believe if Derby County continue with the midfield of Bobby Clark and David Ozo, problems will 100% be caused for opposition defenders. Now, you look towards, obviously, Sheffield United, and obviously, I believe they lost the other night, but you look to those sort of performances, and you look at sort of their midfield, which is Saidi Peck, Yarrow Riderverold, you've got O'Hare, Brooks as their 2 like number 10s. You've got players like Sumare, Louis Barry, Alex Matos as sort of midfield options for Sheffield United. And do I think that Bobby Clark and David Ozo can overpower that midfield? 100%, absolutely. Now, obviously, we are going to have to sort of wait and see sort of how John Eustace prepares for the upcoming games. But I think that Bobby Clark absolutely deserves a run in the team in that central midfield position, because I genuinely thought he was arguably the best player on the pitch today, alongside probably Sondre Langas and Matt Clark. But I think Bobby Clark was absolutely outstanding. Now, you can obviously let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.